Hey everybody, welcome back to Ready Steady Play, where we're slowly melting alive. But we've just defeated the Abbess of Penance in
Thank God.
Gloom of Kilforth. We did it with 1 HP to spare. Michael died. And
Spent hours playing this.
Yeah. We've been here for a while. Andrew died along the way.
He did. We salute you, buddy.
And we are now just going to run through some of our final thoughts on the game and how we felt about it. So when we opened this game up to learn the rules, I mean, I was very excited about this game because I was sold on the art.
The art is very impressive.
And the art's actually completely done by Tristan Hall, who's the game designer as well. So he's done all of the art, he's done the game design. I understand this is sort of been a long-term baby for him, and he's been looking for a way to do it in a manner that is sort of cost-effective enough to put it out, but not also...
He must have spent hours on this art. Because there's so many cards,
like
with
years
so many locations, and it's all so intricate. It's brilliant. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely one of its high selling points.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was definitely the art that sold it to me, because I saw the art and I was just like, this looks like a world I want to go and adventure in. It looks really neat. It looks cool, in fact. And you can see, I think, like how it must have evolved over time as well. Because one thing I really like is that all of the art is full bleed. So on all of the cards, the pictures go right out to the edge.
Yeah.
And that's really, really cool. I think that there is a few little elements that look a little bit inconsistent in terms of the art. But overall, I can't fault it. I mean, so many games have struggled with art, and art is huge. Art can sell a game.
Totally.
You do have these. I mean, it's funny that you would get sort of like this incredibly detailed art on these cards you might never see in the game, and yet some cards that are going to come up much more often have no art at all. And that's curious, because it's like, where are the art on these things? Not that I'm complaining, but it's just everything else has so much detailed art. It's almost like calling attention to the things where the art's a bit less detailed. Like, for example, when the gloom descends on the rolling hills, it just gets a bit more saturated.
Yeah.
And it would have been cool to see alternate art for that, but I feel bad complaining about that because the rest of it is so lush.
Definitely.
So, but art is great, but the game's got to be fun.
The game has got to be fun, and at times I found this game extremely frustrating, particularly with the dice mechanic.
Right. So that's the thing in the game. Really, everything is hung on the dice mechanic, and there's only really two kinds of encounters you have. You have a test, which is where you're sort of going on a quest or exploring a place, and you're throwing dice to try and accrue a number of successes. And you can do it sequentially, so provided you finish it all in the day phase before you run out of time. The second kind is the combat, where you're doing a series of rounds, doing tests every round against the monsters, doing tests against you, trying to accrue more successes than them to drain their hit points. Let's start with the basic test mechanic. That was frustrating.
Yes. Exceptionally so. Because there was no variation on it either.
Right, what do you mean?
Well, there wasn't... So in order to do anything, no matter what kind of action, in order to succeed, you had to have a 5 or a 6.
Yeah.
Now that, for me, is a bit limiting, because there's no variation in that. There's no cards anywhere that gives you an advantage, and it's like, maybe one of the skills could have been enables you to roll a 4, or just so that it doesn't rely so much on this roll a 5 or 6 mechanic.
I agree with you to an extent. I felt like there was, in a game that's so reliant on dice, I felt there was a definite absence of dice manipulation.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to be, I mean, there's got to be a fine balance because it's also about time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you think about how many times we're throwing dice in this game, you don't want to then have a bunch of intricate things you can do to start manipulating rolls and things because it's going to slow the game right down.
Yes.
Especially on the combat tests, but we'll get to that in a minute. But in terms of, your single sort of tests against a thing, it would have been cool to sort of see some more interesting choices implemented in the game. I'm not sure what form they would take or how they could have done it exactly, but maybe a skill that you veil to reroll some dice or increase your odds, or maybe you can activate a skill beforehand to increase your odds on the next throw. Or even just a thing that you can use to add successes or something like that.
Yeah. So that's one frustration of mine.
So did you not enjoy the dice mechanic at all?
No, I did.
So
but I just think it just gets very repetitive.
Yeah, I agree. And so maybe it's not so much... And I think actually this will lead into our second point, because the other thing I wanted to talk about was the combat. Because there's two issues I have with the combat.
That is another exceptionally frustrating thing.
And it's not that the combat was... It's that the combat's the exact same as the tests, really. I mean, the tests, it's not the exact same, because the combat's sort of resolved in this single sort of rounds, and it's sort of a game of attrition where you can run away. You also have these options to evade enemies, but ultimately you're still just throwing dice looking for 5s and 6s, which is the same thing you've been doing the whole game so far.
And the frustrating thing is, if you are the monster and you're like, why on earth am I not rolling 5s and 6s when it's my go, and yet I can throw them all the time when I'm trying to kill you?
Right, yeah, so the game is very much sort of vulnerable to big dice swings. I think I noticed that more in your dice than anyone else's for whatever reason. Maybe I was paying more attention to it when you were throwing dice, or maybe it's simply because you were just throwing more swingy rolls.
I think I was just very lucky.
I didn't see a lot of rolls with as many 5s as 6s as I saw in some of your rolls.
No.
And again, it would have been cool to just see some different sort of mechanics for mitigation or something like that in the combat, maybe different ways to mitigate things. There's also some pretty cool combat spells in the game that we didn't get, partly because none of us were playing the magic users, but the spells we did get were largely not combat based. You had one that gave you +1 fight, but that's not even what I'm talking about.
I had to get rid of it.
Yeah, and I'm talking about a spell called Acid Cloud, where when you cast it, at the beginning of every battle round, the monster takes a damage.
That was a really powerful one, wasn't it?
Well, it was just really cool, because it added this extra element to combat, where you sort of do a damage over time to the enemy. It would have been cool to sort of see, I don't know, maybe armor or weapons that influence dice or something like that.
That would have been a good...
I mean, well, we say that would have been good. We don't know for sure.
But we don't know for sure. But
I think the point is something that added
an
variance,
aspect,
or something like that. And that's the other thing about the combat, is because it's, and I guess this is leading me into the next point, which is action points and hit points, because combat causes you to lose hit points, which causes you to lose action points,
which is another frustrating thing, because it basically loses your go.
Well, it doubles your penalty, really, because losing your hit points is bad, because in future rounds you're going to have fewer action points until you heal. Losing your action points this round is bad because you're negating the rest of your turn this round. And
that was what was crippling Andrew so much.
That was what took Andrew out of the game while he was in it. That, and also the perpetual hail, meant that he could get no action economy going to even heal his character. The game does suggest the option of a catch-up mechanic, where when you start to get Chapter 3, your buddies can get... So if you get Chapter 3 and your buddy hasn't yet got Chapter 1, they can get that for free. And then when you get Chapter 4, your buddy can have Chapter 2 for free in their saga. So you could level up twice at no cost if the others are 2 chapters ahead of you. And I definitely would have played that with Andrew in the game if he was if he was able to stay and play on. And I think he might have actually had a running shot at it after that. But the big problem was, because I looked at the combo of Orc Warrior, just before we'd played, when I was looking at the cards and the art and stuff.
It's
And I was
a
like,
really strong combination.
I was like, this could be great. You could just murder your way through Kilforth, killing all these monsters, getting all these items. And
that would have been amazing in the final battle.
Yep, but the problem was that fighting in the actual game, the body of the game, is so inefficient. Because you can just go and do a place or a quest, or even the influence on a stranger, and get the same level of rewards, but with a victory that's much more guaranteed. I mean, the thing is, it's like if I spend 3 action points to do a place or a quest because I'm chucking dice to get successes, well, I've lost 3 action points. But if I go into a fight, I'm probably going to lose 3 hit points and 3 action points. And then it's cost me the same, and I lose those action points anyway, and now I have to find a way to get those hit points back. And so it's just super crippling. It's just not
worth it.
It's just not efficient. So generally you want to be avoiding fights unless you know you've got it. Like maybe against a humanoid, if you're the executioner and you can just murder a humanoid, well, that's great. Then definitely go in there. Same if you've got the Crusader card that I had, just murder a demon. Brilliant, But then it seems to undermine the efforts of the fighters who are going in there and throwing tons of dice and then taking all this damage and being scuppered for a turn or two after that.
Yeah.
And when it's a competitive race to get to the end, that's very limiting. And maybe it would work different in the cooperative version. But, the game says that both are equally viable versions.
Yeah. It's very true.
But having said that, I thought I would really hate the dice testing thing, and I also thought I would hate its repetitiveness. But I found I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would.
No. But maybe that's because you weren't the victim of, the frustration of it, maybe.
I did get very frustrated with you whenever you took away my action points. I think that action point thing is really bad.
But you're right, I don't think it was as horrendous as what initially...
The game is still completely playable.
Well, we managed it, didn't we? So.
Yeah, we managed it. And I would even consider playing it again, probably, with different class combos and stuff like that. I mean, the build I made is not as efficient as it could have been. So I feel like there's sort of stuff to learn that could be interesting.
For me personally, I would struggle to find of my friends who would want to play this again. Once you've done it once.
Well, there's other more ancients. The map layout will be different.
Very true.
Different class
there's
and
the different
race
options,
combos.
but I think because
I feel like the different race and class combos are big.
The variability and the opportunity to have many different adventures is definitely one of its selling points. But the fact that it takes a long time to play.
Yeah, but that's filming. Filming takes a long time.
That's true. But I do feel like...
Although I do feel like it does take quite a while to play. Even with just one ancient.
Yeah. And therefore, if you're then playing cooperatively and you've got 3 of them...
Yeah, that game will probably go on longer.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, maybe not. I mean, if you're helping each other out, you might get there faster and be stronger.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely recommend it, and if you wanted to play it again, I would play it.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's a very functional game. It's a bit. I think the dice chucking mechanic makes it niche rather than general, because I think that's going to be a very divisive element of the game. And I think if you're the kind of person that enjoys the exhilaration of dice chucking and doesn't get frustrated when big swingy rolls come up, or you find that sort of exhilarating, or you like sort of gotcha mechanics in games, then this is going to be something that doesn't really bother you.
Yeah.
And actually, again, like it's, I think the game's actually fairly clip. Even though it took us a while, I think that's filming because we're explaining the cards and we're showing the things.
True.
But I'll tell you what, your point sort of resonated with me on was it's got a huge learning curve. I mean, it took us a long time to read the rulebook. It's like 30 pages, and you've kind of got to read the whole thing. I mean, it does treat you like someone who doesn't know how to play card games. So, it's explaining sort of elements like keywords and things like that. But the unique rules, the rules that are unique to this system, are kind of buried in with all that other stuff. So you have to make sure you read it all and comb through it so you get everything right.
That was one of my other things that I found very confusing about it. The terminology is not very clear.
Yeah, there's a lot of unique terminology with some very similar sort of elements.
Which required us to keep rereading certain things.
Yeah, we did
And
have
it
to
doesn't
keep
help that my
back
memory doesn't help. So
And
am
then-
I hidden? What can I do again?
Hidden versus surprise.
Yeah.
That took us a while to figure out.
Some
And
of us
then
are still
we missed the fact that you have to spend your hidden token to get surprise.
Yeah.
Which, you know, makes sense thematically. It's like your adventurer jumping out of the bushes
Mhm.
and attacking someone, you know. And then that would combo with your backstab ability. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is very similar terminology. It takes a little while to get your head around.
Yeah.
And also, the thing is as well, like, there's a lot of rules on the encounter cards. There's a lot of rules on the item cards. So it's like you've read this 30-page rulebook, and now you're reading all of that stuff too. So you've got to sort of... I think it's the kind of game where you really want to play with someone who's played before. Because it's actually not too bad. You know, I feel like I could get someone into the game pretty quickly now, having played it through and sort of understanding everything.
Yes.
But even so, there's still a few things that we're questioning, even right up to the end, play and out of play.
Phase,
Yeah.
what does the phase mean?
Yeah, just double checking phase and stuff like that, because it's like on the one hand that seems really powerful,
Mm-hmm.
on the other hand, is it? I think it was. I hope we didn't do that wrong.
No.
But you know,
Well, it enabled you to win, basically.
yeah, I mean,
Because otherwise you wouldn't... Well, I said we don't know because we were rolling dice. It could have gone anywhere.
Yeah, it could have gone. That's the thing. Like, you were rolling 6 dice and getting the same result as me. I had on 14 dice.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So you never know. That's the thing about sort of swinging dice games.
Yeah.
And I wound up way overkilling it in the end, but
Kaboom.
you know, I only lived through with 1 health.
But hey, doesn't matter if you have 1 or 11. Still
That's
alive.
true. Still alive at the end. Some wild claw.
Yeah. I was dead.
You died, and you didn't.
It didn't even do
any
anything.
damage. What about this sort of mechanic of doing the saga?
What of going into the different...
You've got to do
locations.
the chapters and get these keywords to sort of...
Oh,
unlock
the saga,
chapters.
yes. Now I liked that because I love a game that gives a story, and I know that there's other games that I know it's quite limited in the fact that it's not really a big story and it doesn't really add a lot to the overall theme of the game. But because it's a little bit of a story element, that's what I quite liked, and it's giving you a bit of a trail throughout the game.
Yeah, the saga, the narrative element of the saga was definitely a selling point for me, so I'm a little disappointed there isn't a bit more to it.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see maybe some choices in the saga where you could have branched off to sort of develop your character in different ways.
That would have been cool.
And again, like, coming back to it, so we did say actually when I was setting up the game in the very first episode, if you cast your minds back, if you watched that, I took the Pious deck because I wasn't sure how the rules would be for multiple heroes using the same deck.
Mm-hmm.
It does actually say it in the rules, but again, it's one of those things where it's one sentence hidden kind of in all the other
30
rules.
pages.
So it is quite hard to find clarifications on these sort of little nitty-gritty things.
Mm.
It turns out that yes, if there's 2 players using the martial deck and you both level up to level 1, the player who does it first gets first choice, the second player gets second choice, and actually if there's a third player also playing a martial hero, and I'm not sure if there are enough martial classes, there's 8 classes, so there might not be enough classes for that, but if there are 3 using the same deck, the third person gets nothing at all.
Yeah.
So
my issue with the saga is that I think it's a chapter too long.
it's a chapter too long.
Yeah.
Yep, I'd agree with that. I think it is a bit too long. And then having said that, I'm like, but offer us more choice.
Yeah.
I don't know. So maybe 3 chapters, but with like sort of
But if there's only
5 things where it sort of branches off.
So because there was 3 players, we only needed 2 keywords. So we only needed, for example, in my saga chapter 2, it said I needed a place card and an enemy card. If there was only me and Mike playing from the beginning, I would have to have a third thing. So in this, for example, it uses the word title as well.
Yeah. So you can see there, if there's
So-
1 to 2 players, you've got a third keyword you have to
So that's
account for.
another thing that you have to do, times 4, to then try and get to your location to defeat in my case,
Your
I had to
finale.
assassinate my lord,
Mhm.
before even then trying to make sure that you've got everything that you require to then go fight the ancient.
Mhm.
It just seems to go on a long time. Because you could be doing all of that, and all these locations are glooming every night phase. You could potentially, if there's only 2 of you, and you're struggling, and you're running, like you're fighting orcs, and you're having to die, like poor Andrew did, and you've got the hail, and you can't regenerate, so you can't go and do any of these quests or places or strangers. Then before you know it, you've gone halfway through the gloom cards, and you're hardly through your sagas.
Yeah. I mean, we actually did it in pretty good time. We had 5 gloom cards left. 5 night cards left.
Yeah, but that's not that many.
That's not that many, but well, it's a 6th.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a 5th. It's a
But
5th.
it's a 5th.
5 divided by 5 is 5.
I can do maths. Nad. But then you could easily say, if we were all suffering like Andrew was, we could go through half the deck and be still on chapter 1.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like Andrew was suffering because of this issue with efficiency on the combat. And I don't know if it's about just picking up battles, or if it's about because I mean the problem with poor Andrew's build here is that he hasn't really got much ability to do much else. His sneak and influence are so weak that it kind of forces him into the combat situations, because he's unable to accrue the successes he needs to do quests in places.
Mm-hmm.
Even with his study at 3, he still needs to find sort of a reasonable study location.
Yeah.
I mean, he could hide, get that up to 4. That's not terrible.
No.
But it's still nowhere nearly as good as having influence was great, because it just meant that I could go around.
You had so much influence.
Well, by the end, yeah, I could have had crazy combat in the end, but then I couldn't have used the last hero, which was basically kind of compensated for the fact. Like, if I'd taken the other thing, I could have probably got up to similar numbers with influence attack as combat attack, but tit for tat. Like in the end. Oh hey, I gained 2 health for defeating an ancient. Oh no, she's not an enemy. Damn it.
Why? Still trying to take it. You won. Leave it at that.
It says here, vampires are lonely souls, feared and ruthless.
Oh, they've got no friends. I'm a human.
It says the men and women of Kilforth are used to
warring with other races.
warring with other races.
They fight to maintain a hold in their troubled lands. Well, I gave it a good fight. I didn't manage to hold on anything.
Yeah, assassins and that was something else that I didn't quite like. That's just a little nitpicky thing. But the fact that you couldn't use surprise on the ancient.
Yeah, that definitely.
That was because your whole guy has got like so many bonuses from surprise.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, here's a whole aspect of your character that you just can't benefit from. Yeah, that was disappointing. What we should have done really was just teamed up. But then I would have been the active player and I would have won
again. But it doesn't matter.
But I definitely think it has a role. Like, I don't think it's definitely not a write-off game. I think it's
not by any stretch of the imagination.
Definitely about how you come down on this dice checking mechanic. And like I said, I think
pivotal.
If you and the other players sort of understand how the game works, and I think it promises 45 minutes per player. I think you could probably do it in that time. If you all understand what's going on.
You understand the rules and you're quite savvy with your...
But, if you haven't memorized this rule book, then, it's not 45 minutes. So it depends on your commitment, really, guys. I mean, some of this is repetitive, but a lot of it's not. And a lot of it is required reading. But again, it's just like it's a learning curve. A lot, like, there's at least 2 pages of card anatomy, and then once you've got that, you don't have to look at that again.
But I recommend you could play this again and probably do it in 45 minutes each.
Yeah, I reckon so. Yeah. We're probably good now. We did have to print out player summaries. I don't know if you caught these on camera, but I don't usually have to do that.
That would have been good on a little card.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have some little player cards. But, more cards.
Yeah. Definitely.
I also wonder about, because for me the most interesting element of the replayability is the hero and class combos, the race and class combos.
Yes.
And
it's very random.
I'm concerned that some of those races and classes might be Kickstarter exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they'll be coming in the retail box or not. I know that some of them are Kickstarter stretch goals. That doesn't mean they might not come to retail. I know that there were copies of the game on sale at the UK Games Expo, which did have the stretch goals in. So maybe the stretch goals are permanent now.
Okay. Maybe.
But anyway, I hope that Tristan does do well with this and with his company, which is, I think they're called All or Nothing Games.
It was All or Nothing.
Hall or Nothing Productions. www.hallornothingproductions.co.uk. I guess Tristan Hall, that makes sense. So I hope that he does do well off of this, because what I'd really like to see is more artwork from Tristan Hall. He
Definitely.
is a phenomenally good fantasy artist, and I really like what he's done here. I liked that none of the lady characters were too egregiously naked either.
No.
There wasn't there wasn't sort of any even the sexy lady vampire is fairly conservative. This trader's not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't fall into the sort of the typical fantasy trap of sort of very sultry lady characters constantly.
Yeah.
The artwork that depicts the ladies is quite sensible, which is actually very refreshing.
Agreed.
Good. So I hope that sort of helped clarify for you what you can expect to get out of the game, and I hope that you've enjoyed coming on this adventure with us. And
I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's been hot.
Oh, it's been so hot.
Didn't know if I'd make it at times.
Yeah. Well, we had the windows shut.
I was definitely swimming in that lava canyon, at least. From 2/3 in.
Yeah, we were. And actually, one final footnote. These characters where you've got to pound... those
solid.
That mechanic, actually. I don't mind the dice chucking tests. I don't mind the dice chucking combat. I'm not a huge fan, but, I can enjoy it. I can shelve my issues and enjoy it. But that mechanic where you just had to pass a test straight up, one time, it's just throw some dice and get 3 results. That's bullshit. That,
and then that
raging vampire,
and then you might not be able to even battle them.
Yeah, and then they're invincible, and the raging vampire and the ghost. Those are terrible, and they should not be in the game.
Agreed.
I think you could safely take those out. And you would not make this experience bad. You would improve it, probably. So that's just an addendum there. Footnote.
Agreed.
But,
Yeah.
Not, definitely a functional game with some beautiful art. And, does provide an experience that is quicker to set up than a lot of equivalent experiences.
Yeah.
So, but then again, you could just play Mansions of Madness.
Yeah, that's true.
I do love Mansions of Madness.
I like that one.
So, anyway, we've got to get out of here because we kept the window shut this whole time so we didn't compromise the sound. And we're melting.
I'm melting.
We're melting.
I think outside is going to complain that we close the windows again because, I'm a bit sweaty.
I'm dying. So before we dive heat stroke, we'll get out of here. We'll see you guys tomorrow. We're off on another adventure, so make sure you come back and join us for that.
See you soon.
Yeah, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. Throw down a like on the video for, us. And
you.
Leave a comment.
Alright. See you soon, guys.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.